Rob Font and Adrian Yanez has been made in the works. Is not official, not 100% sure that the fight is going to be happening, but it is in the works for April 8th, which right now is set to be UFC 287. Mike Heck, not 100% done yet as the fight, but very, very close. I'm told it's slated to be the date for UFC 287. That's why nobody's saying it's going to be a 5-round fight. This is going to be a 3-round bantamweight war and boxing match between Adrian Yanez and Rob Font in the UFC bantamweight division. The number 6 and number 13 bantamweights in the world, the two top tier boxers, I'd say probably the two best boxers in the UFC's bantamweight division. Maybe like a Marlon Vera or something like that. Petr Yan could be better boxers, but is an amazing fight. Adrian Yanez is a 29-year-old up-and-comer in this bantamweight division, taking on the veteran 35-year-old who's been in the UFC for about 8 years now, beating guys like Matt Schnell, Douglas Silva de Andrade, Sergio Pettis, Ricky Simon, Marlon Moraes, and Cody Garbrandt, only losing to ranked fighters at one point in their careers like Aldo, Marlon Vera, Rafael Assunção, Pedro Munoz, and John Lineker. My early prediction, I got Adrian Yanez. I want to say TKO. Because he's been getting TKO after TKO after TKO after TKO. But at one point in every mixed martial artist careers, even if they're getting finish after finish after finish, they get that one step up in competition where they win, but it does test them a little bit and the fight does go all the way. So I'm going to go Adrian Yanez by a decision. I believe this is worthy of being on the main card of UFC 287. And I am going to go Adrian Yanez by a decision. What do y'all think? Yanez or Rob Font? Banger fight in the bantamweight division. Number 13 versus number 6 or number 7. What was number 6 in Rob Font? Put your thoughts down below. Shavkat Rakhmanov has accepted a Bryan Bam Bam Barbarena fight. Bryan Barbarena said, Neil is out. We're supposed to fight before on short notice. Nobody wants to fight you, Shavkat Rakhmanov. F it, make it at 180 pounds, and I'll see you there. Shavkat Rakhmanov says, why not? Let's do it for the fans. At Bryan Barbarena. And Bryan responded right after that. Mad respect. Let's blank and go at UFC, at Sean Shelby, at Dana White. Let's make this official. Send the contract. Let's get it done, says Bryan Bam Bam Barbarena. Now, the original fight was going to be Jeff Neal and Shavkat Rakhmanov, but Jeff Neal withdrew from some sort of undisclosed injury. I'm not sure what the injury was, but he ended up withdrawing from the fight. We can speculate all we want. If he was just running from Shavkat Rakhmanov, I don't believe any of that. I believe Jeff Neal actually wanted the fight. But now, Shavkat accepts to fight Bryan Barbarena. We might get this at the first UFC fight night of the year. Shavkat Rakhmanov taking on Bryan Barbarena could be the new co-main event for their first UFC fight night of the year. Parlay Shavkat all over the place if you're betting on this fight. That's all I gotta say. But what do y'all think? Shavkat versus Bryan Bam Bam Barbarena. Who wins? Obviously Shavkat wins, but if you go down there and write Bryan Barbarena, I'm going to block you from the channel. I'm going to find a way, because Bryan Barbarena is not going to win this fight. But put your thoughts down below. And yeah, like and subscribe. I'm just kidding. Mokaev is set for surgery after getting a dislocated shoulder. Alhamdulillah. In any situation, unfortunately, I have dislocated my shoulder. Sad face. Now, I will wait for the operation. Thanks to all my supporters. I'll be back as soon as possible. I promise you. Love you all. And he is trying to fight at UFC 286 in England. I believe that's going to be the London in the O2 Arena card. The number 14 ranked UFC flyweight in the world. I mean, he's been calling out everyone. Kai Kara France, who just had a fight get canceled. We had I mean, he was calling out Brandon Royval, he was calling out Alex Perez, Amir Albazi, Matt Schnell, David Dvorak. Man's calling out everyone, but if someone does accept, he is trying to fight at UFC 286, but this does make it a lot harder for Muhammad Mokaev because there's a chance he might not even be on that UFC 286 card due to this injury. But I don't know. It might recover in time. It is March. We still have 3 months to go. Possibly it could take him out of that fight card. But if it does not take him off UFC 286, who do y'all think he should face at that UFC 286 pay-per-view? Amir Albazi, Alex Perez, Kai Kara France, Alessandro Pantoja, or someone else that I'm not even mentioning in the video? Put your thoughts down below. Who should Mokaev fight next? Saeed Nurmagomedov says on Twitter, hey, at UFC, at Ali Abdelaziz, at Sean Shelby, at Dana White, I am ready to take on a fight at UFC 285 in March. Let's do it. Showing some training footage of him hitting the mat or hitting the pads with his coach right there, and he is looking to return in March. Most likely a card that's going to be headlined with John Jones, Francis Ngannou, maybe John Jones, Curtis Blades. Hopefully it's John Jones, Francis Ngannou, but we've seen Saeed Nurmagomedov do some really good things inside of the UFC. Started, got a very close decision, then knocked out Ricardo Ramos devastatingly with a body kick, lost the decision on Mahayoni Barcelos, then won on an absolute tear, 51-second knockout, 47-second guillotine, a unanimous decision on Douglas Silva de Andrade, then he guillotined Sayokub Kakramanov. That guillotine is a very good weapon from him. He's got like 3 or 4 guillotines on his record. Half his wins by finish, half of them are by a decision. Now, for who he's going to be fighting, because he's saying he wants to fight at UFC 285. There's a lot of guys he can potentially face on that UFC 285 card, because the bantamweight division, what are they doing? Nobody wants to fight. Not a single person really wants to fight. The only matchup we have in the top 15 of the bantamweight division, besides like Umar Nurmagomedov and Hayoni Barcelos, is literally Marlon Chito Vera, Corey Sandhagen. That is it. Petr Yan doesn't have a fight. Merab Dvalishvili does not have a fight. He should probably get a title fight, or he should fight Petr Yan in this one. They haven't made any fights for that. O'Malley doesn't have a fight. Yadong doesn't have a fight. Ricky Simone, on a goddamn 5-fight win streak, does not have a fight. Nobody has a fight here. Saeed Nurmagomedov's looking for a fight at UFC 285. He has all the options because nobody is booked at this moment in time. Now, my thing here is, are they going to push him up the rankings? Or are they going to be like, dude, Sayokub Kakramanov was kind of dominating you in round number 1. We might actually have to give you one more fight before, or maybe then we'll give you a top 15 fight. But you need one more good win outside of the top 15, because getting a decision on Douglas Silva and getting kind of dominated by Sayokub Kakramanov, that's a little iffy there. For you to be fighting all these top 15 killers of the bantamweight division, such as O'Malley, Yan, Merab, Vera, Sandhagen, Font Cruz, Song, Munoz, Simone, Umar, Gutierrez, Yanez, and Jack Shore. I don't know if he's ready for that kind of opposition just yet. And even if he was, Jack Shore, I don't think is going to accept it. There's really like no movement going on there. Yanez probably is going to get Rob Font next. Chris Gutierrez deserves a step up. Umar deserves a step up. Ricky deserves a step up. Yadong, there's no way they're doing Yadong versus Saeed. That's just too big of a jump for Saeed. And Pedro Munoz, like Pedro Munoz is not going down all the way to number 15. If he's gonna fight anyone below him in the rankings, the UFC probably make it a Chris Gutierrez fight to do a nice kickboxing battle, showcasing Chris Gutierrez, the new striker versus the old striker, and boost Gutierrez to the rankings. So as of right now, I don't actually think Saeed Nurmagomedov is going to get a top 15 fight. I think he's going to have to go outside of the top 15 and fight one of the up-and-comers, like maybe a Montel Jackson, Possibly, maybe a Rafael Assunção coming back inside of that top 15. Jonathan Martinez, Kyler Phillips. There's a lot of names here for potential matchups for Saeed Nurmagomedov. I don't think it's going to be like a Javid Basharat or any like the undefeated up-and-coming contenders, but some of those up-and-comers that have kind of already had their shot and they kind of blew it. Sorry about that. And they're not necessarily like super young and super good prospects and things like that. So I would actually assume maybe a Montel Jackson fight inside of the top 15 or a Jonathan Martinez fight. Another one where Jonathan and Montel Jackson have shown some little weaknesses every now and then in their fight. Jonathan's been knocked out a lot of times. It could be a good showcase fight for Saeed Nurmagomedov. Montel Jackson was getting rocked a few times against Julio Arce and against JP Buys even in their fight. So there's a few fights that you can make for Saeed Nurmagomedov. I don't believe he really deserves a top 15 fight after kind of losing a lot of that fight to side Jakub Rakhmanov. So I'm thinking right now, in the UFC's bantamweight division, you got to do... Let's just go Montel Jackson. I would say Montel Jackson versus Saeed Nurmagomedov at UFC 285 on the prelims. If Montel wins, all right, Montel's in the top 15. If Saeed wins, all right, then at that point, maybe you got someone like Dominic Cruz losing one more fight to Chris Gutierrez, and then Saeed can fight him or something like that. But right now, I don't think Saeed deserves an up-and-coming test against like a Pedro Munoz or Ricky Simone and any of these guys in the top 15. But it's really tough because it's such a stacked division, and everyone right here in that like 10 to 15 range are all up-and-comers, so you don't really want to put Saeed against any of those guys. They're all on win streaks, so they're not going to want to go back in the rankings, so it's a tough thing to do in the bantamweight division, a matchup who Saeed is possibly going to fight next, but I'm predicting maybe a Montel Jackson, or maybe, who's the other guy I was saying? I said Montel Jackson, or maybe a Jonathan Martinez. One of those two guys, I'm thinking he's probably going to fight next. But who do y'all think he should fight? He says he wants it at UFC 285. I'm assuming Montel and Jonathan would definitely accept a Saeed Nurmagomedov fight. It'd be a good one. Who do y'all think wins and why in those two matchups? And do you think those are the correct matchups to make for Saeed Nurmagomedov? Put your thoughts down below. Bellator 290 co-main event has changed from Yoel Romero, Vadim Nemkov to Johnny Eblen and Anatoly Tokov with the main event, Fedor versus Fedor 2. We got the rematch in that one. We got some good fights on the first Bellator card of 2023. We're not going to look at the prelims or anything. A lot of up-and-comers on the prelims that we're only going to look at in this video is going to be that co-main event and that main event and give my early predictions for these two fights. Johnny Eblen versus Anatoly Tokov. Anatoly is 31-3, not as tall, not as lengthy. He's got very good wrestling, very good grappling, and ground and pound. Was able to TKO Muhammad Abdullah in round number 1, get a lot of other ground and pound and finishes on the ground as well, but is nowhere near as good of a striker as Johnny Eblen. Johnny hits like a truck. He's got some good power in his hands, so my early prediction here is, yeah, there might be some good scrambles, a few takedowns, a submission attempt here and there, but it'll mainly be a 5-round striking fight in my opinion, and I think Johnny Eblen retains that Bellator middleweight belt and wins the unanimous decision. As for the main event, Fedor versus Fedor, similar in height, similar in reach, little edge for both guys. Fedor probably going to be a little bit bigger, but really not that much of a size difference for either guy right here. Fedor actually came off a knockout win on Tim Johnson about a year ago, which is pretty insane in my opinion there. But this is Fedor Emelianenko's final fight as a professional MMA fighter. His final fight ever after beating some great guys in his entire career. Title challenger Chael Sonnen, champion Frank Mir, Quinton Jackson, I believe, was also a champion. Tim Johnson, former UFC fighter. Pedro Hizzo, I believe, was a UFC champion right there. Dan Henderson, title challenger. Silva, title challenger. Fabricio Werdum, champion. Gegard Mousasi, I believe, was a title challenger, at least a Bellator champion. Andrei Arlovsky, champion. Tim Sylvia, champion. Mark Hunt, I believe, was a title challenger. Antonio Rogerio Nogueira, Kevin Randleman, Mark Coleman. I mean, the names go on and on and on. Do I think he's going to add Ryan Bader to that list? I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm sadly going to be saying, for my prediction here, between Fedor versus Bader, I'm going to have to go Ryan Bader to win this fight. I think Ryan Bader, I don't think he's going to finish him. I think this one will go a little bit longer, and it'll be a pretty good fight. I think Ryan wins 3 or 4 rounds here. Fedor will win 1 round, get close to a finish, rock Ryan Bader at the end of one of the rounds, make it an interesting fight, but I'm going to have to go Ryan Bader to win. I hope Fedor wins. I will be betting on Fedor to win right here. He's going to be the underdog. He's going to have some good plus money. But if I'm thinking about it logically, I'm going to have to go Ryan Bader to win a close, competitive decision. Bellator 290 Bader versus Fedor. Charles do Bronx Oliveira makes his prediction or his pick for Alexander Volkanovski versus Islam Makhachev. The former champion in Oliveira coming off that submission loss in round number 2 to Islam Makhachev with that arm triangle choke submission. Before that, he was the dominating lightweight. I mean, he wasn't really dominating. He was always getting rocked in a lot of his fights with the finishing lightweight champion in Charles do Bronx Oliveira. And now the next challenger has made his face known in Alexander the Great Volkanovski, the featherweight champion and the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world. #1 versus #2. Who does Charles do Bronx Oliveira have winning? Now, a lot of people go on Makhachev, 63% of Tapology go on Makhachev, 37% go on Volkanovski, having Makhachev as a little bit less than a 2-1 favorite. Alexander is the lengthier guy, but nowhere near as tall, and he's a little bit older than Islam. Both guys have 1 loss on their record, with Volkanovski having a little bit more wins, but who does Oliveira have winning? Let's see in 3, 2, 1. They are 2 great fighters. Alex is a fighter that defends takedowns very well. He hits and kicks very hard, explains the former champion. On the other side, Islam has very good takedowns. When he gets you down, he puts on the pressure. Oliveira continued, I think Islam wins, but if Volkanovski defends the takedowns in the first round and connects with the hands, I think he's got a chance. I think Volkanovski does have a chance. So, the former UFC lightweight champion has Islam Makhachev beating Alexander Volkanovski. Did not mention if he thinks it's going to be a submission, if he thinks it's going to be a decision or anything like that. Personally, I got Islam by submission in round number 2, round number 3, round number 4. One of those middle rounds. I don't think it's going to be the last round, and I don't think it's going to be round number 1. But Oliveira, I mean, he just has Islam winning the fight. I think he's going to out-wrestle him, out-grapple him, and maybe get the finish on the ground. Who do y'all have? Volkanovski or Islam Makhachev? The General is taking over the UFC PI. We got Nick Diaz training for his next fight inside of the UFC, working at the UFC PI in Las Vegas. His last fight was a middleweight fight with Robbie Lawler. Before that, a George St. Pierre and Anderson Silva and a Carlos Condit fight. Was on one of the biggest win streaks of all time. No, I'm just kidding. But a good win streak nonetheless right there inside and outside of the UFC. And now I'm trying to figure out, who do we give Nick Diaz? Because he's training for a fight. He's at the UFC PI, he's working, and he's trying to get another fight inside of the UFC, and he is a middleweight fighter now. Not a welterweight fighter, he's a middleweight fighter. And who in the world in the UFC's middleweight division are we going to give Nick Diaz after he looked so gosh dang horrible in his last fight with Robbie Lawler, who's also looked so gosh dang horrible in his last few fights? It's not going to be a newcomer, obviously. Not going to be any one of these up-and-coming kills. Let's give him Bo Nickel. No.
we gotta give him a veteran that he's at least got a shot to win, or the veteran can also win the fight. And it'll be a good fight, a nostalgic fight, something like that. But who the heck do we give Nick Diaz in this dang middleweight division? Because there's not really Ponzinibbio, maybe? I mean, Ponzinibbio, I don't know why, but he's 114th in the middleweight division for some reason. I don't know why. Who in the world? Or do we give him a welterweight that we're just going to make that welterweight move up to the middleweight division? I don't know. Who do we give to Nick Diaz? This has been on my mind for a while, but now that I'm seeing him in the UFC PI, we got to find a good matchup for him. Bryan Barbarena, no. Bryan beat Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler beat him. So we're not going to do that one. Got to go lower in these rankings here. So nobody in the top 50. Those guys are killers. In the UFC's welterweight division, Matt Brown would be decent because he lost to Bryan Barberena, Carlos Condit. He's fighting a lot of these veterans: Donald Cerrone, Diego Sanchez, Ben Saunders. Only like two up and comers in his last like 7 or 8 fights. You know, Matt Brown wouldn't be too bad of a fight. Wouldn't be too bad of a fight. He already fought Robbie Lawler. There's Nate Diaz. We do Nate Diaz versus Nick Diaz. I don't know. I don't know if anyone really makes sense right now. He's not in the UFC anymore. Gleison Tebow. I would have to say Matt Brown is like the only option I see. That's it. It's really only Matt Brown as a possible fight I can ever see in the back of my mind that I can see them giving to Nick Diaz at this point in his MMA career is pretty much only Matt Brown. That's it. That is it. That is all. I don't know anyone else that would make sense. And I mean, Angelusa? No. There's so many up-and-comers in this welterweight division. Court McGee, maybe? But Court McGee isn't like that well-known of a veteran. Matt Brown's a little bit more well-known because he's got like the most knockouts in the UFC's lightweight or welterweight division. He's got a lot of freaking knockouts in his MMA career. So that's what I'm going to go with. That's what I'm going to go with. Matt Brown versus Nick Diaz on the prelims of a pay-per-view. Second fight on a pretty bad pay-per-view. Something like that. Give both of them a chance to go out there and get a good win. I think Matt Brown would probably win. At this point, he was able to knock out Diego Lima, Ben Saunders, Diego Sanchez with that elbow. That was nasty. That elbow was freaking nasty from Matt Brown. But I think Matt Brown versus Nick Diaz would make some sense. What do y'all think? Who should Nick Diaz fight next? Donald Cerrone, roided up to the freaking gills. Let's check it out. I've looked at Donald Cerrone's recent Instagram photos and things like that, and the dude is so juiced. He is so juiced to the gills, all the way through his veins. It is absolutely insane. Donald Cerrone right here. It is insane. Let's check it out. Look at this dude right here. Donald Cerrone with the veins popping right there. Everyone in the comments saying swole Cerrone, swole-roni. I don't know what they're saying. And the TRT Cowboy coming in hot. And he's not denying it. We know, he knows, everybody knows. Donald Cerrone is on some sort of steroids. TRT something. I don't know what specifically, but he is on something. And right now, sorry about that. Right now, in a comment on someone asking him if he would like to fight Jake Paul, would I like to fight him? How could I say no to millions of dollars? I would definitely go out there and do it, says Donald Cerrone. Now, I don't know if Jake Paul is also on some sort of steroids. There's a possibility, but to make it even, you gotta let Jake Paul do it. If Donald Cerrone is obviously doing it, you gotta let Jake Paul do it as well and possibly have this boxing match in 2023. I doubt it's gonna happen because that would kind of be going back from Anderson Silva to Donald Cerrone. Seems like a step back in competition in my opinion, but what do y'all think if they were to fight Cerrone? Juice to the gills versus Jake Paul. Who do y'all think would win and why? I'd probably go Jake Paul. I mean, it's another very old veteran. Yet another one, Tyron Woodley, Ben Askren, Anderson Silva, and maybe now Donald Cerrone. Put your thoughts down below.